Hayes woke in the middle of the night with a strange pressure on his chest and a faint buzzing sound in his ears. The room was dark, lit only by the pale blue glow of the ventilation strip on the ceiling. For a moment he thought he was in his bedroom back on Earth, surrounded by comfort and normal things, posters, old blankets, childhood trophies. But then he remembered, Earth was far behind him. He was aboard the Orion Academy, a space station orbiting the edge of the Andromeda exchange route, where humans and aliens studied together. As the buzzing sound grew louder, blinked several times, trying to focus. His eyes widened when the shape above him came into view. Two thin arms, smooth like polished stone, were placed on either side of him. A pair of silver eyes glowed softly in the dark. A shadowy silhouette with violet skin and delicate mandibles leaned just inches from his face. It was his alien roommate. She was sitting on top of him. His breath caught in his throat. His heart began to pound like a hammer striking metal. The shock made him freeze, and for a long second he could not speak, move, or even think. His voice broke the silence, soft and trembling. "I request mating," she said. The words echoed in his head, confusing and frightening him all at once. He tried to sit up, but her knees and arms pinned him gently but firmly in place. She was not hurting him. She was not threatening him, yet the situation felt overwhelming. He swallowed hard. What are you doing?" Her silver pupils dilated with uncertainty. "Initiating the bond. It is necessary. You are my chosen partner." Felt his pulse race. He didn't understand. His mind scrambled to make sense of her words. On Earth, such a request meant something personal, physical, intimate, something humans did with deep trust or love. It wasn't a casual thing. It certainly wasn't something you asked while sitting on top of someone in the dark. He shook his head lightly, trying to calm himself. "You can't just, humans we don't do it like this." Blinked slowly, confusion spreading across her alien features. "I studied human bonding. I learned the words, I am prepared, this is correct." Prepared, the word struck him like a blade. She had researched this. She had planned this. She truly believed she was doing the right thing. Sphere softened, replaced by a strange mixture of pity and sadness. Wasn't acting out of aggression or desire. She wasn't driven by instinct or dominance. She was acting out of duty, maybe even hope. He whispered, "I think you misunderstood. For humans, bonding is emotional. It needs talking, trust, time. We don't begin like this." Her mandibles twitched, and something like hurt crossed her face. The grip of her knees loosened a little, and she lifted her weight from his chest, sitting back slightly. "Then I have failed," she murmured. The shame in her voice hit him harder than the shock of waking up under her. She wasn't trying to frighten him. She wasn't trying to force him. She was trying to belong. Sat up slowly, careful not to startle her. His voice softened. "I'm not angry, I was just scared. You surprised me. Humans react strongly when surprised." Her eyes lowered and she shifted away from him, folding her arms around her torso. Her posture changed, from confident to small, isolated, uncertain. The hum of her breathing turned uneven. "I should not have chosen you," she whispered. "I believed you were suitable." The words stung him unexpectedly. Suitable, chosen, that meant something in her culture, something serious, something that cost her courage to ask. He rubbed his forehead, trying to think. "Listen to me, I didn't reject you, I just need to understand what you meant." She didn't answer. She slid off his bed quietly, her feet touching the cold metal floor. The soft light painted her form in blue shadow as she turned her back on him. Watched, helpless, as she walked toward her own bunk and curled up, knees drawn to her chest, head bowed. He could hear her breathing, slow, heavy, and trembling. And for the first time since arriving at the academy, realized something important. On this space station, humans were the minority. Had taken a risk. She had reached across an enormous cultural gap. And now she was hurting. Lay back, staring at the ceiling, sleep gone from his mind. His chest felt tight. He didn't understand everything, not yet, but he knew one thing. Tonight was not about romance. It was about misunderstanding. And it would change everything between them. The next morning woke to the sound of quiet footsteps on the metal floor. Sunlight filtered through the small viewport, painting the cabin in soft gold. But the warmth of the light did little to chase away the cold feeling settling in his chest. Was already awake. She had made herself breakfast, synthetic protein cubes and glowing fruits, but she sat far from him at the edge of the table. For months, they had shared everything. Late-night talks about Earth, laughter over confusing alien customs, experiments with zero-gravity pranks, and even whispered secrets that no one else could know. But now, there was a distance that felt like a wall, invisible yet unbreakable. Tried to speak. "Good morning," he said softly, attempting casual warmth. Didn't look at him. She nodded briefly, her silver eyes downcast. "Morning," she replied, her voice neutral but cold. Stomach sank. He knew that tone. He had heard it in humans before, people shutting down when they were hurt. But with it felt heavier, stranger. She wasn't human. He couldn't be sure if she even understood what she was doing to him. He picked up his food but could barely eat. Each bite felt mechanical, without taste or comfort. His mind wandered back to last night, to her trembling voice, to the words she had whispered in the darkness. "I should not have chosen you." She believed she had failed him. And in a strange way, that belief hurt more than fear. Classes passed slowly. In the gravity-controlled lecture hall, noticed her sitting far across the room, her posture rigid. She didn't laugh at the professor's usual jokes. She didn't ask questions or share notes with anyone. Even her usual playful gestures, like tilting her head to make him laugh, were gone. It struck him how much he had taken her presence for granted. Her odd habits, her quirks, her insistence on explaining everything scientifically. It had all been a part of his day, a comforting rhythm. And now, without her, the station felt empty. During the break, found himself outside, leaning on the railing, staring at the stars. The Academy's orbit cut a thin blue line across the darkness, and distant planets glimmered faintly. He could almost imagine Earth, far away but still alive, waiting. He wondered if felt the same emptiness. After a few moments, she appeared in the doorway. She didn't say anything. Her movements were careful, almost fragile, as if she feared breaking something invisible. She stood there, looking at the stars but not moving closer. Stepped forward. "I don't want us to be like this," he said, keeping his voice low so no one else would hear. "I don't want distance between us." Her silver pupils flicked toward him, sharp and cautious. "Distance is necessary. I acted improperly. I have embarrassed myself." "No," he said quickly. "You didn't embarrass yourself. You were trying to bond, right? To connect. I understand that now." She turned fully toward him, her mandibles quivering slightly. "You understand." "Yes," said. "I was scared last night. I didn't know what you meant, but I know now. And I want to understand you, not in a rush, not in the way you thought, just understand you. That's enough for me." Her expression softened, almost imperceptibly. She took a small step closer, but still there was caution in every movement. I wanted to follow the customs of my species. I thought it was necessary to survive here. If I failed, I would be returned to. I was afraid." His chest ached. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it out loud made the fear tangible. She had risked everything to stay, to learn, to be part of this human world. And all she got in return was his shock and fear. "You didn't fail," he said gently. "You're brave, braver than most humans I know. You didn't understand everything, but you tried. And trying, that's what matters." She blinked slowly, as if processing his words. Slowly, she moved closer until she stood just a few feet away. "You are forgiving?" she asked, almost whispering. "I'm not just forgiving," said with a small smile. "I want to be your friend. I want to help you. And if you let me, I'll show you how humans bond, not through fear, not through pressure, but through time and trust." For the first time since yesterday, she allowed a faint smile to curl along her lips. Her pupils glimmered with a soft light that seemed warmer than the station's glow. "I will try. I will follow your guidance," she said. Nodded, relief washed over him. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if the bond between them would be easy or awkward, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to let her walk away. Not now, not ever. And for the first time that day, the cabin didn't feel so cold anymore. Days passed, and the cabin felt heavier than ever. noticed that once bright energy had dimmed. She no longer joked about the strange gravity experiments or teased him about his clumsy attempts at zero-gravity flips. Her silver eyes, which usually sparkled with curiosity, now seemed distant and thoughtful. Tried to talk to her to bridge the gap, but each attempt ended with awkward silence. She would nod politely, answer briefly, and then retreat into her own world. He realized that her pride was wounded, but there was something else, too. A fear that he might never understand her culture, never forgive her perceived mistakes, and never truly accept her as she was. He couldn't sleep that night. The cabin was quiet, the hum of the life support system barely noticeable over the thumping of his own heart. Stared at the ceiling, thinking about the night of their first misunderstanding. He kept replaying her words, "I should not have chosen you." She hadn't chosen recklessly. She had chosen carefully, and that choice had been powerful, brave, and terrifying. She had risked humiliation and rejection just to form a bond with him, a human who had barely begun to understand her. And now, the cost of that courage was isolation. The next morning, he found her sitting at the observation deck. The station's viewport stretched before her, revealing a panorama of distant stars and swirling nebulae. His posture was rigid, almost as if she were trying to become part of the metal floor beneath her, hesitated before stepping forward. He said gently, "We need to talk." She didn't turn. Her voice was low, calm, but heavy with distance. "There is nothing to talk about." His chest tightened. Her walls were higher than he expected. I don't want this distance between us. We've been friends for months. You're important to me. I don't want to lose that." A long silence followed. Then she spoke, her tone carrying the weight of worlds he could barely imagine. "You were frightened. You rejected me. I thought perhaps I misjudged humanity. Perhaps we cannot share a bond after all." Her words cut deeper than any argument could. Wanted to protest, to explain, but he realized she was not just hurt. She was afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of failure, afraid that the culture that gave her identity would separate her from the one person she had risked everything to trust. "I wasn't rejecting you," he said softly, stepping closer. "I was scared. I didn't know what to do, but I don't want to be scared of you, and I don't want you to be scared of me." Her silver pupils flickered toward him, then back to the stars. "Scared, fear has ruled my decisions. I followed my instincts and failed. Perhaps I am unworthy." "No," said firmly. "You are brave more than anyone I know. You risked everything to stay here, to trust me, and that matters more than anything." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, though her eyes still held hesitation. "You forgive me?" she asked, almost whispering, as if the word itself was heavy to speak. "I don't just forgive you," he said, letting a small smile soften his features. "I want to understand you. That's what friendship is, right? Understanding, even when it's confusing, even when it's scary." She shifted, tilting her head in the way she used to when curious or amused. It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of a mountain. "Understanding, yes. Perhaps we can begin again." Nodded, relief flooding his chest. "We'll take it slow. No mistakes, no rush, just together." Her mandibles twitched, forming a faint curve that almost resembled a human smile. "Together," she echoed. But even as the first cracks of connection reappeared, knew the rift had not completely healed. Trust, once shaken, required more than words. It required actions, time, and patience. And the academy was not a forgiving place. Rumors traveled fast, cultures collided constantly, and a single misunderstanding could spiral into isolation. As they returned to the cabin, carried a quiet determination. He would not let this friendship falter. Had reached out across a chasm of culture, language, and species just to form a bond. He owed her understanding, empathy, and patience in return. And in the quiet glow of the cabin, with the stars casting soft reflections across metal surfaces, silently promised himself he would not let fear or confusion destroy what they had. Together, they would navigate this strange world. Together, they would find trust again. For now, that was enough. For now, the rift existed, but the first steps toward healing had begun. The following days passed slowly, weighed down by an unspoken tension. Noticed subtle changes in her movements were careful, almost hesitant, as if she feared making the slightest mistake. She still completed her assignments flawlessly and attended lectures diligently, but there was a quiet sadness in her gaze that he could not ignore. One evening, when the station lights dimmed for the scheduled rest cycle, found alone in the observation deck. She stood by the viewport, looking out at a distant cluster of stars. The hum of the engines was soft, and the glow of the nebula cast delicate shadows across her violet skin. She did not notice him approach. He called gently, careful not to startle her. She turned slowly, her silver pupils reflecting the "You are awake," she said, though her voice was subdued, almost hesitant. "I wanted to talk," he said. He stepped closer, careful to respect her personal space. "About everything, about last night and about these days. I feel like there's something you're not telling me." Her shoulders slumped slightly. "There is. I have not shared because I feared you would reject me. You were frightened when I asked, when I attempted bonding." His heart tightened. He had guessed there was more behind her actions, but hearing her speak it aloud made it real. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said softly. "I was confused, yes, but I wasn't angry. I just didn't understand, that's all." She shook her head, a flicker of frustration crossing her delicate features. "You do not understand. In my culture, choosing a mate, choosing a partner is the highest honor. It is not a simple request. It is a declaration of loyalty and trust. When I failed to execute it correctly, I feared I had destroyed everything. I feared being sent back to." Stepped closer, his voice steady. "You were scared, I understand that, but you're not alone here. You have me. You don't have to face anything by yourself." Her mandibles quivered, a sign he had come to recognize as vulnerability. I thought if I failed, all hope would be lost. Humans have fragile connections. I thought you might never forgive me." "I forgive you," he said firmly, placing a hand lightly on the railing beside her. "I don't just forgive, I want to help you. We can figure this out together. You're not failing, you're learning, that's what matters." Her eyes softened, and for the first time in days she looked at him without hesitation. "Learning, you make it sound so simple, yet I have struggled to adapt. I have feared that no matter how hard I try, I will never belong." His chest tightened with empathy. He had been a stranger here once, too. He remembered arriving at the academy, overwhelmed by aliens of all shapes and colors, their languages strange and their customs alien. And yet somehow he had found his place. And now he realized that needed him to be her anchor in this strange world. "You do belong," he said quietly, taking another step closer. "You belong because you're brave enough to try, because you're honest about your fears, and because you're willing to reach across a gulf of culture to connect. That's more than enough." Her silver pupils glimmered, a faint light of hope igniting within them. She moved a little closer, almost instinctively. "You do not find my fear foolish." "No," he said gently. "Fear is human too. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you real, and I want to face it with you, not alone." For the first time, a faint smile formed along her mandibles. It was small, hesitant, but it carried warmth. "Together, then," she whispered. Nodded together. They stood side by side, staring out at the stars. For the first time since the misunderstanding, there was a sense of calm between them. The weight of unspoken fears and doubts was still there, but it was shared now, less daunting because they faced it together. In that quiet moment, realized something important. Humanity had a strength that wasn't about weapons or power. It was about connection, understanding, and empathy. And with all her alien customs and fears, had reminded him why those things mattered most. For the first time since the rift began, the cabin no longer felt cold. Hope glimmered like the distant nebula, delicate but unwavering. And as they turned to leave the observation deck, side by side, felt the bond between them grow, not through ritual or ceremony, but through understanding, trust, and the courage to face fear together. That night he slept with a calm heart, knowing that while the challenges ahead were many, they would not face them apart. Together they could endure anything. The following morning, the academy was unusually quiet. Students of all species were scattered throughout the corridors, but moved with careful precision, as if each step was measured against some invisible standard. Watched her from the doorway, noticing how her shoulders carried a subtle tension. Her eyes, usually bright and curious, were now focused and serious, reflecting the pressure of her inner thoughts. Approached her slowly. He said softly, "Are you ready for today?" She paused, her silver pupils meeting his. "I do not know if one can ever be truly ready," she admitted, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "But I must try. I cannot return to, not yet, not while I am learning." Nodded, he understood the weight she carried. This was not just about friendship or bonding anymore. It was about survival, about proving that she could adapt to a world where humans and aliens coexisted, a world that was so foreign it could feel cruel. "Then we face it together," he said, offering his hand. "Like we promised." Her mandibles twitched in acknowledgement, and she placed her hand gently in his. That simple gesture, a connection of trust, felt heavier than any physical challenge they had faced before. The evaluation was in a large chamber filled with representatives of multiple species, each observing silently. Stood in the center, her posture upright, but noticed the faint tremble in her limbs. He stayed by her side, a silent support. He could feel her tension, her anxiety, but also her determination. The lead evaluator, a tall alien with translucent skin, addressed them. You are to demonstrate your ability to form a human-alien partnership. Your understanding, adaptability, and trust will be observed. Begin." His voice was firm but controlled. "I understand." Stepped forward slightly, staying close but not in front of her. He could see the flicker of doubt cross her features, memories of her failed attempt still haunting her, but he knew what he had to do. He whispered, "Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about trust. I'm here, we can do this." Her silver eyes met his, and she drew a slow, steadying breath. "Yes, together," she said. The demonstration involved tasks designed to test cooperation, empathy, and communication. Some were simple, assembling complex mechanical structures, deciphering human phrases, coordinating movements. But others were subtle, designed to reveal emotional intelligence, reading reactions, understanding unspoken cues, and adjusting behavior accordingly. Watched her work. Every motion she made was precise, careful, yet infused with a quiet confidence. She paused occasionally, checking his reactions, seeking his guidance without asking explicitly. Each time he offered a reassuring nod or a small smile, and each time her tension eased just a little. When they reached the final task, a scenario requiring complete trust, they had to navigate a simulated zero-gravity chamber blindfolded, would lead, and had to follow his verbal instructions without hesitation. "Step forward slowly," he instructed, his voice calm and deliberate. "Now turn to your right, yes, perfect." His movements were careful at first, tentative, but as his voice guided her, her confidence grew. Her trust in him became tangible, almost electric, bridging the gap between their two species. The observers watched, silent but attentive, as she moved fluidly, responding to his words with growing certainty. When the final bell signaled the end of the evaluation, opened her eyes fully, her pupils glowing softly with relief. She had completed the tasks without error, without hesitation, and without faltering. The lead evaluator approached, nodding slowly. Your performance demonstrates not only technical skill but emotional understanding and adaptability. You have proven that trust and empathy transcend species. You may remain at the academy." His mandibles twitched, a small smile forming. She turned toward, her eyes shimmering with gratitude and joy. "We succeeded," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Smiled back, feeling a warmth that spread through his chest. "We did it together. I told you we just needed trust." For the first time since their misunderstanding, the weight between them lifted. The rift, the fear, the uncertainty, all of it had been transformed into something stronger. A bond built on empathy, patience, and mutual respect. As they left the chamber, side by side, steps were lighter, more assured. Realized that humanity's strength was not in brute force or intellect alone. It was in understanding, in connecting, in offering support without judgment. And in that quiet moment, among stars and distant galaxies, he felt something profound. The HFY he had always believed in, the human ability to inspire, to teach, and to uplift, had touched life just as hers had touched his. Together they had faced fear, doubt, and misunderstanding. Together they had triumphed. And for that was worth more than anything else in the universe. After the evaluation, the academy was quieter than usual. Students and instructors had gone about their routines, but for End, nothing felt normal. The pressure of fear and misunderstanding had lifted, replaced by a fragile, shining trust. Yet the bond they shared was still new, delicate, and required nurturing. Found in the cabin later that evening, sitting cross-legged near the window, gazing out at the swirling nebulae beyond. Her violet skin glimmered faintly in the soft light, and her silver eyes reflected the distant stars, as if she were searching the universe for answers she could not yet find. "Hey," he said quietly, approaching her. She looked up and offered a small smile. It was the kind of smile that spoke of relief and exhaustion all at once. "Hello," she replied, her voice steady but gentle. I am still learning how to exist here, how to belong." "You belong," said firmly. "Not because of the evaluation, not because you passed some test, but because of who you are. Brave, honest, curious, you fought to stay here, and that matters more than perfection." Tilted her head. "You make it sound easy, but it is not. Every moment I fear misunderstanding. Every gesture I make, I worry it may offend or fail or frighten you." Smiled softly. "I won't lie, some things confuse me. Some of your customs, your instincts, I don't always get them. But that's okay. That's why we have each other. We learn together. We trust each other. That's how humans bond. That's how anyone bonds, really." Her mandibles twitched, a subtle sign of thought. "Trust, I have never known it like this before. In my culture, trust is given cautiously, rarely, and with expectation. Here you allow it freely, without fear of error, without demand. It is different. It is comforting." Sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. "That's how humans survive, not by fear, not by competition, but by helping each other, by understanding each other. That's what makes us strong." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the station and the soft glow of distant stars filled the silence, but could feel the subtle shift, her tension loosening, her breathing steadying, her eyes holding a new kind of light. I wish I could express how grateful I am," she said finally. "You did not mock me, you did not reject me. You guided me. You have changed my perception of humans entirely. I admire your patience." Laughed softly, shaking his head. "Admire me? That's a lot to put on one human. I just care enough to listen, enough to help, enough to stay with you when things are scary. That's all." "But it is everything to me," she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly. "Everything I feared losing, everything I needed, it is here, because of you." The weight of her words pressed gently on his chest. He realized then that this bond, the trust, the empathy, the willingness to face fear together, was more powerful than any lesson, any test, any alien ritual. It was connection itself, and connection was what made humanity, and perhaps any species, truly strong. He reached out, brushing a hand lightly across hers. Her fingers, delicate and alien, twitched at first, then relaxed under his touch. No words were needed. The gesture alone spoke volumes, reassurance, understanding, promise. "I'll stay," said softly. "No matter what, I'll stay with you. Through mistakes, confusion, even fear, we face it together, always." Silver pupils shimmered, reflecting the stars beyond the viewport. "Always," she echoed. In that moment, the cabin was no longer a small, confined space in a cold station. It became a place of warmth, of courage, of shared hope. Two beings from two worlds had crossed the impossible gap of misunderstanding and fear. They had formed something rare and strong, something neither could have created alone. Leaned back against the wall, watching the nebulae swirl in colors that made skin glow faintly. He felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in them, in what they had achieved together. And for the first time, he allowed himself to believe that no matter how vast the universe was, some bonds could withstand anything. Leaned slightly toward him, resting a hand gently against his arm. She didn't need words. The gesture, simple yet profound, said everything: trust, gratitude, connection. And as they sat together, side by side, realized that humanity's strength, its true strength, was not in power or technology. It was in heart, in the courage to understand, to forgive, and to stand by each other, no matter how alien the world, no matter how daunting the challenge. For the first time, the future didn't feel scary. It felt possible. And together they were ready to face it. The day of the final assessment dawned clear and quiet, the station bathed in soft light from the nearby star cluster. Students of all species gathered in the central atrium, buzzing with anticipation. Some whispered, some laughed, some observed quietly. But for And, the world felt still. It was as if everything outside their bond had faded, leaving only the space between them. Stood tall, her violet skin glowing faintly under the ambient lights, silver pupils shining with a mixture of nervousness and resolve. Was at her side, a calm anchor in the storm of expectation. Together they had faced fear, misunderstanding, and doubt. Now they faced the ultimate test, not a ritual, not a technical evaluation, but the judgment of the Academy's most discerning instructors. The lead evaluator, a towering alien with translucent wings, addressed them. Today you demonstrate the culmination of your learning. Your ability to bond across species, to understand and adapt, will determine your place at the Orion Academy. Took a slow breath and gently touched her arm. We've faced everything before, this is no different, we do it together. Her mandibles twitched faintly, forming the closest approximation to a smile. Together, she whispered. The tasks began, testing coordination, empathy, and intuition. Some were mechanical, some emotional. They navigated a zero-gravity maze, solved complex codes, and communicated under strict limitations. Every action was observed, every response measured. But it wasn't the challenges that mattered most, it was the trust. Guided her through moments of uncertainty with calm, patient instructions. Responded with unwavering focus, her movements fluid, her decisions confident. At every hesitation, she looked to him, and he met her gaze with reassurance. Together, they were seamless. When the final task approached, the evaluators required them to navigate a simulated emergency scenario, a collapsed module with simulated life-threatening consequences. Panic could have ruled the moment, but they remained composed. Step forward slowly, instructed. Keep calm, I've got you. Moved as he guided, trusting his voice completely. Each step, each decision reflected not only her skill but the bond they had forged, the connection born of understanding, patience, and courage. When the scenario ended, they were unharmed, unbroken, united. Silence filled the chamber. Then the lead evaluator spoke. Your performance demonstrates not only skill and intelligence but something far greater, empathy, trust, and partnership. You have crossed barriers not just of species but of fear itself. You belong here. A wave of relief swept over, and she turned to, her silver pupils glimmering with tears. We succeeded, she whispered, voice trembling. Smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond pride. No, you succeeded. I was just here with you, that's all. But in her eyes, he saw gratitude, admiration, and something even deeper, a bond stronger than any evaluation could measure. She reached out, brushing her hand against his, a silent promise that transcended words. As the crowd dispersed and walked together through the corridors of the station, the distant stars glimmered, reflecting the promise of possibilities yet to come. For months, they had faced misunderstanding, fear, and cultural divides. They had woken to confusion, navigated distance, endured rifts, and finally learned to trust completely. And in that journey, they had discovered something universal. Humanity's strength was not measured by technology or power, but by empathy, courage, and the willingness to stand by each other in the face of fear. Glanced at him, her violet skin glowing softly in the light. I do not know if any other species would have shown me the patience you have, she said. You have changed my world. Laughed softly. And you've changed mine. You reminded me what it means to connect, to trust, to endure together. For the first time, the Orion Academy didn't feel like a distant, alien place. It was a home, not because of walls or lights or rules, but because of the bond that had grown between a human and an alien. And as they stood together, side by side, staring out at the vastness of space, realized the truth of it. Humanity mattered, not because of strength, not because of intellect, but because humans could reach across fear, across worlds, and form connections that endured. Squeezed his hand gently, and he returned the gesture. Words were no longer necessary. The silence between them spoke volumes. Gratitude, respect, trust, and an unspoken promise that no matter what challenges the universe threw their way, they would face them together. The stars above shimmered like witnesses to their journey. The galaxy seemed smaller, warmer, and infinitely more beautiful. Smiled and mirrored him. Together they had bridged worlds. Together they had endured. And together they would continue to do so, no matter how vast the universe became. HFY